Welcome to part 2 of the tutorial on a simulation exercise for the procurement department. We have covered a few of the possible scenarios that the procurement department would face in case of disaster. In the part 2 of this tutorial, we will cover the balance scenarios. It's 5:30 p.m. on August 28th, and the authorities have determined that the building is badly damaged and reuse of the building may not be possible in near future. As per the terms of contract, the contract with the on-site service provider is for 6 weeks duration, after which the cost shoots up exponentially. There is a need to identify an alternate work location. This alternate work location could be permanent or it could be temporary, which is not known at this time. Questions: what is the procedure in place to identify a location and sign a lease? And how can this entire process be telescoped into 6 weeks? It may be possible that the organization could have a temporary coal site leased from another service provider, and they would have equipment that could be leased from various manufacturers that could be installed over here. The organization could operate from this location indefinitely or till the time it is able to have another permanent location commissioned. In case it's a cold site with equipment coming from the manufacturers, we need to scope all of this in the shortest possible time. What are the procedures in place to do so? 9 p.m. on August 29th. IBM has assessed that the mainframe recovery is not feasible due to extensive damage. New equipment needs to be procured. Questions: what is the emergency procedure to procure the equipment? How much time will this procedure take? And how much paperwork can we dispense off with? One of the underlying themes in a disaster mode for procurement is to do away with as much paperwork as possible, but at the same time have a system in place to record all transactions that occur, so that in an audit in the post disaster phase all records are available. Dispensing of paperwork and getting verbal sanctions is good, provided that it is predefined and the audit is welcome to audit what has happened during the disaster phase. The audit department should also be a part of the simulation exercise, and they could point out as to what would be allowable and what would not be. It's 9 a.m. and the director of procurement is forced to book his leave due to family emergency. So we are talking of a backup for the director of procurement. So who will take over the running? In one of the organizations, the director of procurement had earmarked an individual to be his replacement, but this individual neither had the experience nor the ability to actually act as a backup without having actually worked on it. So the second question was, how would the person be made aware of all the activities conducted so far? During the time of disaster, both the director and the backup should be involved in all stages. So in case if the director were to be unavailable, the backup could step in without any ramp up time. It's 9 a.m. number 1, and some of the equipment could be salvaged. Questions: what is the procedure to salvage equipment? Because of the hurricane, some of the equipment was buried under the rubble and disposed as debris. How will asset inventory be undertaken? Or do we say that all the equipment other than that was salvaged is declared as obsolete? Question: There may not be sufficient time to barcode equipment that is procured in emergency. How will accounting be maintained? This is important because in normal circumstances, once a vendor is awarded a contract, a purchase order is issued. The vendor supplies the equipment, it gets stocked into the warehouse where it's barcoded, and then it is distributed to the location where it was intended to be located. In case of a disaster, and let's assume if the warehouse were to be affected and due to shortage of time, this process would need to be expedited. So what procedure do we have in place wherein the manufacturer can send the equipment directly to the place where it needs to be at that time, and barcoding and subsequent activity can be undertaken subsequently. In fact, in one of our assignments, in the normal operating conditions, we had a vendor supplying a server which was not what was on the contract, and replacing the server took around 30 days. This is a non-disaster mode wherein a wrong server was supplied. The problem was that this server had the equipment number tag as the one which the organization wanted. Once the server was installed and it was rebooted, it was discovered that the content of the server does not match with what the organization had asked. It's 9 a.m. on September 1, and now we have insurance questions coming up. Who knows the equipment? Who informs the insurance service provider? And what is the procedure to collect insurance? Questions related to this would be: in time of the disaster, who is responsible for photographing the equipment, for photographing the site, photographing the damage? Insurance also would need to be part of the simulation exercise so that the organization knows what they are looking for. Thank you for listening to this tutorial. Please be back.